High to Phoenix, Arizona. High noon, 1899. The relentless sun beat down on the dusty road, turning the world into a shimmering mirage. Sweat trickled down my temple, stinging my eyes. I squinted ahead, wiping the grime on my sleeve. Finally, there it was, our new home. A stark contrast to the hustle and bustle of San Francisco we were leaving behind, this house stood solitary amidst a vast expanse of parched earth. My name is Amelia Thornton, and for the past 10 years, I dreamt of leaving the city. The cramped apartments, the constant clamor, the air thick with coal dust, all of it had suffocated my spirit. So when my husband, Thomas, stumbled upon an inheritance, a sprawling house in the outskirts of Phoenix, hope bloomed within me. A fresh start, a chance to breathe. The closer we got, the more the house seemed to loom. It was a Victorian monstrosity, 3 stories tall, its paint peeling like sunburnt skin. Ornate gables and a wraparound porch cast long skeletal shadows across the dusty yard. Wispy white curtains hung limp in the windows, like vacant eyes staring out. "Well, Amelia," Thomas said, his voice strained with the bumpy ride. "There it is. Your new kingdom." There was a nervous edge to his tone. I knew he shared my apprehension, but neither of us wanted to admit it. We had a 2-year-old daughter, Lily, and a new life to build. This house, for all its unsettling aura, held the promise of a future we couldn't resist. Pushing open the heavy oak door, we were greeted by a wave of stale air thick with the scent of dust and something else, something metallic, vaguely sweet. The interior was surprisingly well preserved, with high ceilings, ornately molded plasterwork, and dark wood floors that gleamed faintly beneath a layer of dust. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting vibrant patterns on the floor. Lily, oblivious to the atmosphere, squealed in delight and ran ahead, her tiny footsteps echoing in the cavernous hall. I chased after her, a smile tugging at my lips. The house, despite its imposing exterior, held an undeniable charm. Exploring further, we found a spacious kitchen, a formal dining room with a massive mahogany table and 4 grand bedrooms on the upper floors. An ornately carved staircase with a red velvet runner led to a landing overlooking a large library, its shelves crammed with leather-bound books. Everything was beautifully preserved, as if the previous occupants had just left for a weekend trip. "Who were they?" I asked, tracing a finger along the spine of a dusty book. Thomas, who was inspecting a grandfather clock in the corner, frowned. The lawyer wasn't very clear. Apparently a distant relative, a Mr. Blackwood. He died without heirs, and the house passed to a distant branch of the family tree. Us. Something about the name Blackwood sent a shiver down my spine. I scanned the room, searching for some clue about the enigmatic Mr. Blackwood, but the only sign was a single faded portrait hanging above the fireplace. It depicted a pale, gaunt man with eyes that seemed to follow you around the room. The day wore on as we unpacked boxes and explored the house. Lily, meanwhile, had claimed a dusty toy chest in the attic as her new treasure trove. As dusk settled, casting long shadows, I felt a growing unease. The silence in the house was oppressive, broken only by the creak of floorboards and the occasional thud from the attic, where Lily was playing with her newfound toys. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from above. My heart jumped. Rushing to the attic door, I threw it open and climbed the narrow staircase. Lily stood in the center of the room, surrounded by scattered toys, a look of fear etched on her face. "What happened, sweetie?" I scooped her up, cradling her close. "Teddy fell," she whimpered, pointing to a large old-fashioned teddy bear lying on the floor, its head ripped open. Inside the bear's head, bathed in the fading light, was a tarnished silver locket. Picking it up, I brushed away the dust. On the inside, under a cracked glass face, was a faded photograph. A young couple, their faces smiling brightly, stood with their arms around each other. But what struck me most was the inscription on the back. "To our dearest Amelia, may you find happiness in this house." My breath hitched. The woman in the picture looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place her. And who was Amelia? Looking up, I noticed a small, almost hidden door in the corner of the attic room. Curiosity gnawed at me. Lily, still shaken, clung to me. "Leave it, Mama," she whimpered, burying her face in my shoulder. Hesitantly, I lowered the locket back into the bear's head. The inscription on the back sent a jolt through me. My name. In this strange house, filled with secrets, someone had known me. But who? Ignoring the tremor in my hands, I pulled a chair closer to the hidden door. It was a simple wooden panel flush with the wall. Examining it, I noticed a faint keyhole nestled in the corner. My heart pounded in my chest. A secret room in our new home. Thomas came up the stairs just then. "Everything all right?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern. I held up the locket. "Look at this." He stared at the photograph, his face draining of color. "Who are they?" I shook my head, unable to speak. Suddenly, a gust of wind howled through the broken attic window, slamming it shut with a loud bang. The lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. Lily screamed, clinging to me tighter. Thomas fumbled for matches, their tiny flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. As the room re-illuminated, I noticed something unsettling. The hidden door was slightly ajar. Dread pooled in my stomach. The wind hadn't opened it. Taking a deep breath, I crossed the room and pushed the door open further. A narrow passage, dimly lit by a single flickering oil lamp, beckoned me. "Amelia, what are you doing?" Thomas called out from behind. "I have to see," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. An undeniable pull drew me forward. Ignoring Thomas's protests, I stepped into the passage, the floorboards groaning under my weight. The air was thick with dust and the smell of mildew. The passage twisted and turned, leading deeper into the bowels of the house. Fear gnawed at me, but I couldn't turn back. I had to know what secrets this hidden room held. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the passage opened into a small, dusty chamber. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and the walls were lined with dusty trunks and antique furniture. In the center of the room stood a single, ornate writing desk. On the desk sat a leather-bound journal, its cover worn and cracked. Intuition thrummed through me like a live wire. This was what I was meant to find. Picking up the journal, I blew away the dust. On the first page, in a flowing script, were the words, "Amelia Blackwood, 1878. My breath hitched. This was the Amelia from the locket. Eagerly, I flipped through the pages. Each entry spoke of Amelia's life in the house, of her loneliness, of her yearning for a child. But the entries became increasingly frantic, filled with cryptic warnings and desperate pleas. One entry, dated mere weeks before what seemed like an abrupt stop, sent a wave of terror crashing over me. "He is coming. The shadows whisper his name. I fear for my soul. If you find this, Amelia, turn back. This house holds a darkness beyond your comprehension. Flee while you still can." The journal slipped from my grasp, clattering to the dusty floor. My heart hammered against my ribs, my blood turning to ice. Then, a sound echoed from the passage, faint at first, but growing steadily louder. A low, guttural growl like the scraping of claws on stone. Panic surged through me. I whirled around, the hidden door looming before me. Just as I reached for the handle, a bone-chilling voice filled the room. "Welcome home, Amelia." Terror rooted me to the spot, my hand frozen on the doorknob. In the flickering light of the oil lamp, a dark shape began to materialize in the passage, its form growing larger with each passing second. With a blood-curdling scream, the journal tumbling from my numb fingers, I slammed the hidden door shut, scrambling back through the passage. The monstrous growls intensified, followed by a sickening thud against the hidden door. Bursting back into the attic, I collided with Thomas. Before he could speak, I grabbed his arm and dragged him towards the stairs. "Run, Thomas! Don't look back!" We stumbled down the stairs, my legs burning, Lily whimpering in my arms. Reaching the downstairs hallway, we threw open the front door and slammed it shut behind us. Felt like a welcome embrace. We sprinted across the dusty yard, not daring to look back at the looming house. The wind howled around us, carrying with it the faint echoes of the monstrous growls. We didn't stop running until our lungs burned and our legs felt like lead. Collapsing onto the ground far from the house, we gasped for breath, our bodies shaking with a mixture of terror and adrenaline. Lily, thankfully, had fallen asleep in my arms. In the faint moonlight, I looked at Thomas, his face pale and drawn. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice hoarse. I shook my head, unable to speak. The image of the dark, menacing shape in the passage burned behind my eyelids. "We can't stay here," I finally managed, my voice a ragged whisper, fear warred with a strange sense of responsibility. Amelia's journal, with its cryptic warnings, felt heavy in my heart. "We need to get help," Thomas said, his voice resolute. We spent the night huddled together under a makeshift shelter of branches, the howls from the house a chilling reminder of the horror we had barely escaped. Dawn broke, painting the sky with streaks of pink and orange. The house, bathed in the soft morning light, looked eerily peaceful. It was hard to believe the darkness that lurked within its walls. With a heavy heart, we packed our belongings, leaving behind Amelia's journal hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the attic. The fresh start we craved had turned into a nightmare. But as we drove away from the house, leaving behind the dust and shadows of the past, a new resolve grew within me. We may have fled the house, but the darkness it held wouldn't be contained within its walls forever. Amelia's journal, entrusted to me, held the key to unraveling the truth. I wouldn't let her pleas go unanswered. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the fight against the darkness had just begun.